Welcome to Onchain Capital, your front row seat to the future of finance, from Web3 and AI innovation and digital asset policy to the power shift between East and West. Today, we're unpacking it all with Daniel, co-founder and CEO of ZeroStack. We will dive into the convergence of AI and blockchain with ZeroStack, the first Nasdaq-listed asset management company that's turning decentralized AI into investable yield-generating reality. Daniel, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Daniel, so for those in the audience that may not be very familiar with ZeroStack, maybe a quick intro about the company and the journey that you have taken the company to, and then we'll dive into a lot of the AI-specific topics that we have previously talked about.
Of course. Okay, so ZeroStack started with 0G. 0G is the largest L1 in the decentralized AI space that essentially provides tools for developers to be able to go in and get access to a full stack of compute services and agent orchestration. But ZeroStack became more of a platform to be able to bring in and solve problems like being able to accumulate yield generating assets in the decentralized AI space and attempt to be a Berkshire Hathaway-style type of operation that focuses exclusively on decentralized AI. So we're forward-looking into a space that's growing extremely fast. We looked into 20 to 25% growth rates year over year for the next 10 years. And those are on the conservative side. We think they can go a lot faster than that. So it was a very exciting opportunity, and we decided to take it public and bring it to the general market on Nasdaq.
That's amazing. I mean, for the general public to get access to these bleeding edge technology that really blurs the line between all of these frontier based technologies is quite phenomenal. And maybe let's dive a little bit into the general landscape of AI first, right? Like those of us that are in Web3, we champion the notion of inclusivity. We champion the notion of kind of decentralization, governance, and control. But if you look at AI in general today, a lot of the AIs are really controlled by super large conglomerates, the likes of OpenAI and NVIDIA from the compute side. And it's really a gated, a walled garden, so to speak, right? Do you kind of see the direction of where it is going today? And also the fact that now we have such robust decentralized technologies that there is some way that we can bring out the best in both worlds?
Okay, so I'll start by saying that NVIDIA has executed extremely well. And this isn't criticism. Yes. It's that demand for AI compute is really outpacing centralized supply. But this is our opportunity too. I mean, decentralized infrastructure adds a global market-driven like supply layer that essentially will allow us to be the first ones to move away from siloed AI. And currently, and as you said, there's a handful of companies that control models, compute. In terms of open market, where infrastructure, capital becomes accessible, like they have the whole stack. But at ZeroStack, we want to become that infrastructure and the asset management company that will essentially make that shift go towards a market that's not siloed.
I mean, if you look across the board, right? You've got this notion, like for example, like the last few weeks, I've been trying to set up my own kind of local AI machine, on a Mac Mini, loading, OpenClaw and smaller models that my compute can actually handle, and you can start to see this notion that you can realistically do quite a bit on these kind of distributed compute platforms. But then at the same time, there comes to a point where I'm trying to load a bigger model and trying to ask the agent to do more, then it starts to really fall short. And I think the value proposition for a lot of these larger providers has always been, hey, you pay a monthly fee, a subscription fee, and you get so many tokens and so on and so forth. So when you decentralize that AI layer, are you going to have any sacrifices, or as you stretch it across the different computing platform, you're actually going to get that economic of scale? I'm curious to kind of hear your point of view on that.
Okay, so technology exponentially gets better with time, right?
Yes.
And as of today, we are having at major data centers, you look at Oracle, you look at some of the biggest providers that are out there, and they are literally calculating by the square foot the amount of distance between two machines to ensure that the processing time as data travels is the fastest possible. That's not what we're solving for today. Decentralized AI cannot compete on speed, and anybody that wants speed to be their mantra, as of today, that's not what we're here to offer. Decentralized AI has merits of its own, but you can't expect a decentralized network to be competitive in performance with a centralized one.
I see.
That's just not realistic.
Not realistic. I mean, I guess I come from the data center space, as I shared with you before, right? So I have seen things like decentralized storage, for example, right? Where the premise of a IPFS and infrastructure in that manner can potentially, in some sense, replace the need for distributed storage. But at the end of the day, performance, cost of scale, and so on, still haven't really been able to push it up into the wider kind of usage and adoption as we have seen. But AI is a very different animal, though, right? Like, it's not just storing data, reading and writing data. It is now computing and processing. So the notion of having that type of new infrastructure, but still make it accessible to the general public. I mean, I think the vast majority of people like us that are just doing things, running our own agents, is not running some high workload, AI workload. I would assume a distributed type of architecture probably would be sufficient for most people.
Well, there you go. So that's exactly the point. So what people care about, and this is why decentralized AI is going to disrupt the entire market, is because an H100, an H200, an H300, the hardware has cycles, and cycles will create obsolete machines. Now, when you say, "Oh, this machine is obsolete for what?" Because the cost of the hardware is going to decrease dramatically. So now if you look at the network like 0G, where anyone can upload their H100s, H200s, get paid for it, and they can offer at scale the same model training efficiency to whoever wants to come and train their model in a private, in a secure, and in a scalable fashion, that's what we're here to do. And that's the mission of the entire space, I believe.
So help me understand a little bit. Sometimes I like to dive into the details. When I look at blockchain infrastructure and you look at validator nodes and the notion of verifying transactions, that's something that I'm relatively familiar with, given the fact that I used to run a layer one. But in the sense of a decentralized AI, and when you're plugging in a H100 and how does that actually work? Like, does the compute, are you looking at it more like a distributed compute in general, or are you really leveraging the individual machines that are plugged into the network? And how does workload get dispersed from one H100 sitting somewhere else and another H200 sitting somewhere else, and then some other kind of maybe smaller machines? Like, how do you balance that out from a technical perspective? I'd love to dive a little bit more into the nuance of things.
Okay, so I'm going to start by just sharing with you that like ZeroStack invests in companies that offer technical solutions that solve for problems like this.
Mm-hmm.
0G was our first investment, and there's a portion of it that 0G has had a record-breaking research paper published by training a very, very large model where it's very clearly explained all the technicalities of it. I can start by just giving you a quick background. The network itself and the validators for 0G, I mean, ZeroStack is one of the validators of the 0G network, but
Right.
we use third-party software to deploy our tokens, and we do it securely and compliant under Nasdaq. Under the SOC 1, SOC 2, and we were partnered with BitGo to deliver on this validation infrastructure. But
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, and as you mentioned correctly, then there's the compute side. And the compute side, you can simply rent cloud computing power from any data center you would like to install this, and you can run your compute infrastructure utilizing 0G for your functions, but not directly putting all the weight of the validation. Now, I must say that there's areas of distributed compute that are still under research in pretty much every company we've looked at investing. So this is not a space that's mature. This is not a space that is already even close to its full potential. But we're now seeing from an investment side, we're seeing very exciting opportunities that actually make it worth our while to double down in the space. But I do believe we're, a next cycle. Definitely next cycle is when we're going to start seeing the first real returns for our shareholders.
The next cycle, I mean, in this space seems to be getting shorter and shorter by the year, right? And especially the pace at which this entire industry is moving, I can probably see that happening in months rather than years. Are there other projects that are in a similar space? I mean, you guys not only build the infrastructure and have the entire architecture and the governance model kind of built out, you've also taken the company public. Like that's one leap that many companies in this space are still kind of not progressing towards. Like you've accomplished quite a bit in a very short amount of time. What's the thinking behind one going public, right, and giving that access to the general investors, and two, how do you balance the shareholder expectation, but at the same time that innovation and that really fast to innovate notion? Like I'm very curious. You're the CEO, you're running the entire company, so there must be a lot going through your mind right now.
Okay, so we're very different from most companies that have gone out with the narrative of being a DAT.
Right.
And I'm using that, and we're not a DAT, and we've never really acted like one. DATs were created on the premise that you would continuously accumulate and you would run the ATM to buy more of the asset and run the flywheel and have all kinds of leverage. We don't behave like that. We actually, our debt is non-existent. Our entire strategy has nothing to do with running flywheels. What we do is we make smart investments that generate high yield for our shareholders. And on top of that, we also have, and this is something that we're proud to say, we also have a pharmaceutical company that did $60+ million in revenue last year, distributing GLP-1s. So we're more of an asset manager and less of a DAT. And we don't even track MNAV, because the concept of MNAV is mostly applicable to DATs, because if we did track MNAV,
Right.
we would probably be the most successful DAT that has built the most share value for any shareholder on the public markets.
The DAT market is obviously has been taking a bit of a beating as well. So I don't know whether that type of a organizational kind of entity structure will continue to stay. I think it probably, some of them will probably survive. But I think during the current market conditions, that might be a little bit difficult. You touch on something, Daniel, about yield generation, right? You're really running as a asset management company, as you mentioned, rather than purely just a technology infrastructure provider. You're really bringing all of that together. Talk a little bit about this notion of almost like a agentic yield, right? You're allowing agents to run on the decentralized network, and then the asset and the participation in the network has some yield generation kind of functionality to it. Talk a little bit more about that. I think that's really fascinating to look at.
Yeah, so let's go there. And you've spoken about CloudBot before and how
Mm,
people were running their agents and now if you adapt that same concept and everything that has changed in the last couple months with this the agents starting to actually go to work,
right.
think about the following. Instead of passive treasury management, if AI continuously scans for yield opportunities and it's
Hmm.
actually able to relocate capital dynamically, and instead of capturing arbitrage, uh, actually, sorry, it captures arbitrage. It actually can say, okay, there's the liquidity inefficiency in this particular trade, so we can just get there and, for example, short it or buy faster. Or maybe there should be a short-term dislocation happening in real time. So all these trading strategies are going to be enabled by agents, and that's something we're very excited about because, in our opinion, as an asset manager, we should be able to set up our risk tolerance and then let it run and let AI do its thing because we are big believers in AI, and actually, this ties into zero G as well. So if you actually think about the fact that we can train our models in a decentralized fashion, if we're able to do inference without that data being widely published and without our
Hmm.
secret sauce and strategies being detected, we've not only kept ourselves private, but we have an edge by using decentralized AI in the process.
So that's fascinating because the whole reason for me to really set up my own local machine and really trying to learn all of this in real time was because I was worried that if I'm taking my for example my 401k portfolio or my crypto portfolio and I want to ask an agent to analyze it and then make some decisions for me. I'm actually worried that a lot of these information gets now consumed by the by the big data companies, and obviously no one wants to see that. So I wanted to kind of run it myself locally, but then as I shared with you earlier, what I find is that there's only so much you can do yourself, right? Unless you're like unless you're not worried about kind of tinkering in a lot of hardware and cluster things together. I mean that's a whole different animal. Like I just want a machine to run it. So this is like what you're saying is it actually plays specifically towards some people like me that really wants that privacy, but also want that capability to be able to run things across the board without our data getting leaked out. That's actually quite interesting. I mean, are people doing that already on Zero G and running their own agents with their own data sets
Oh, yes.
on the ecosystem?
Correct. Yes, there's lots of agents live. You can look at the zero G chain explorer. There's and growth has been like the chart we love to see. So we're
Right.
very excited about it. And matter of fact, we're this is more of a foundation project. We're pretty much an investor, and we treat ourselves that way. But Zero G has launched an accelerator program called Apollo, and Apollo is financing early stage applications for disruptive companies that actually are building on Zero G. And some of those are projects just like the one you probably have on the go. So take a look at it.
Will do. That's actually quite interesting. I'll probably leave a link to the video in the bottom to the Apollo program as well. That really fascinating. So these AI agents that people are running on the network. have you made it? Is the architecture so that these agents can be shareable? They could be, yeah, are they open source in the sense like what I'm seeing in some of the OpenClaw libraries that people can kind of make use and add skills? Is it at that level, or are they really more self-contained?
Look, the most important thing about zero G is that you have flexibility.
Mm.
Whatever type of agent you would like to build, zero G provides the railways for you to scale it and for you to train it and for you to design it. It would be unfair to say, oh no, it just you box it in one particular bucket, because that's not the case. You can come in, you can build, and even if you have a very exotic, great idea, you can talk to us, and perhaps we're even interested in investing in it, or the Zero G Foundation might be interested in bringing it in as a technology that they're developing. So those are, and labs also. So there's all kinds of ecosystem players that they all have different roles. We're an investment company, but the other two are more on the tech development side.
Very cool. Very cool. So maybe switching gear a little bit, right? You and I, chatted earlier. I spent a lot of time in the digital asset policy space. I focused on the transitional aspects from, highly centralized. Everything has to be in a box, has to be in an institution to now seeing regulators regularly talk about regulating DeFi and what stack of the DeFi and yield-bearing stablecoins that are still going on in a debate in the US, and so on and so forth. But in AI governance, there's also been a lot of news and announcements that's been coming out both in the US and Europe. Have you paid attention to those? How are those evolving kind of from your perspective? And does ZeroStack have a role to play in potentially guiding where some of these may be going, given the fact that you are running as a decentralized network, which is quite different than many of the other large players?
Well, if you actually do a quick Google search, you'll see that in the UAE, I was invited during Abu Dhabi Finance Week to attend a roundtable where exactly we were discussing what were the implications of this in stable coins, what were the implications of AI in the entire ecosystem, and that's work that I really love doing, is policy design. We want to be more involved with governments globally in having those conversations, especially because ZeroStack, being the public vehicle that's the largest institutional owner of Zero G, puts us in a very unique position to actually go to a government and say, if you care about privacy, if you care about security, if you care about sovereignty, you probably should be using Zero G, because this technology effectively will enable you to train your own models, retain the privacy of your citizens, and also your government data, in a way that if you use Oracle or if you use some of these centralized players, which, by the way, they have their own, I'm not by any means, I mean, I think all these companies have their rightful place. If you need performance, if you need data consistency, if you need localized processing, they are the right choice for all of this. But we play a role, and we're complementary to a lot of the things that they're working on, and we just want to be positioned in a policy design and in a government level in that juncture.
It's interesting. It's unfortunate we didn't have a chance to meet during Abu Dhabi Finance Week. I was there as well. I was also in these roundtables on stablecoin, but much more focused around cross-border payments and FX, and then also local currency stablecoins, including the digital dirham, and how it interacts with other local currencies, essentially creating that on-chain economy, right? So we were probably involved in many of the same kind of conversations with the same similar type of regulators. Just we went in the same one, but I'm really glad to connect with you here and really talk about this fascinating, fast-moving industry, because every day, like you turn on the news, except for what's actually happening right now in the world. But other than that, everyone's talking about AI, right? Every different aspect of AI. So I think having these fundamental infrastructure and governance model, as well as the ecosystem development aspects towards this industry is very, very sorely needed.
Very, very. And
Yeah.
cross-border was one of the major issues they were discussing, but also, how to ensure that the central banks retain KYC, AML, and all this infrastructure, central banking regulations and sovereignty is maintained. So stablecoins are still a hot topic, and they're
Yes.
adjacent to AI. And they're very adjacent to AI because AI can help regulate them. So in many ways, part of the strategy that we have is how can we promote zero G's investments, including ZeroStack's investments, including zero G, as a platform for people to be able to come in and train their AI infrastructure for stablecoins. And we might have some news coming on that soon, but not yet.
Awesome. Maybe we should find another time to touch base on that particular topic. I think that would be something that we would love to work with your team on. So Daniel, with that, thank you so much for coming onto the episode. This has been one that I was really looking forward to because this is in such a leading space in the current phase of where we are on the technology side. And I've definitely been paying close attention to ZeroStack. In fact, I have some friends that have been working in the zero G ecosystem. So for me to have the opportunity to talk to you it's a pleasure. And thank you so much for the insights that you have shared with us.